Good morning, everybody. It's 9 o'clock, starting right on time. I'm so honored that you all would come out and greet me on a Saturday morning here in beautiful Oakley, Kansas. I want to say thanks to a few people here. Amy in the Logan County Hospital. Amy, thank you for hosting this. We appreciate it. I guess they're getting ready to build a new facility here, and that's great news for Oakley, Kansas, and the community they serve. We recognize a few other people here. Your local state representative, Jim Minix, is here. Jim is in the back of the room. He said that if after we're done here, he will stick around for a little bit and answer a few questions. If you have questions at the state level as well. I've not seen Senator Rick Dillinger here yet this morning, but Rick does a great job. Jim does a great job. You know, it truly is a labor of love. So we appreciate what they're doing as well. Always want to shout out to my local sheriff's officers, the local city police as well, the highway patrol. My dad was a police officer for 25 years, so those folks are very, very near and dear to my heart as well. We have a little hand for the law enforcement office. All right. I think I got through all the thank yous here. Beck, I'm going to hand this off to you. You know, I usually don't use any notes, but I had some things that were heavy on my heart today that I wanted to share as we got ready for this. If you got questions, if you want to write them down and hand them off to Abby down here. You got a pen? I'm sorry.
Pass them right up.
Hand these down to Abby this way, and Becca will take some this way. They'll try to filter through the duplicates as well.
Thank you.
We don't get to speak.
Let me just start with this. You know, usually every month I find something that I kind of focus on that's inspirational to me. And the one that I'm focused on right now, the quote I'm focused in, is that we have to be willing to doubt our own infallibility. That in a democracy, we have to be willing to doubt our own infallibility. And it's interesting that I looked up President Eisenhower, a big hero of mine. What did he have to say about this? And he said, this is quoting President Eisenhower. May we always remember that no matter how certain we are that we're right, if we truly believe in democracy, we must be willing to admit that we may be wrong. And what it also reminded me, I give a tour on the Capitol when people come to visit bigger groups as well. And I always try to stop in front of President Eisenhower's statue and share a little bit about his history, that he was the 34th President of the United States, of course, Supreme Allied Commander, two-term president, the 34th President of the United States, and when he finished his time of service, the historian said he was the 31st best president we've ever had. But today, those same historians think he's one of the top 5 presidents we've ever had. But it took years and decades for his decision to come to fruition. But in the world we live in today, we make a statement this morning, we make a decision this morning, and by 5 o'clock, the entire world, with our 24/7 media cycle, has decided if we're right or wrong. So it takes me back to where I started, that we have to be willing to accept our own infallibility. And I think if we have a lot of folks that have traveled a long ways to be here. This is really Oakley's Town Hall. I'm going to try to focus on their questions.
Thank you.
You represent the whole state. Did you remember you got elected from the whole state?
I'm going to say this one time. If you all keep cutting me off, if you're rude, which you're being, I'm going to leave. The people from Oakley don't deserve this.
Thank you.
All right.
Can we see a raise of hands?
Okay, this is what I'm talking about right here. That if you're going to keep interrupting me, we're not going to do this. Okay? You're gonna, if you have a question, you can write them down and you can turn them in. Okay? So my staff will get them all, and they're going to go through them and get rid of the duplicates. We're going to try to focus on some things that might be important to Oakley, Kansas.
Give me a second.
Just remind We're not going to hold up your hand and shout. We're going to write down your questions. We're going to turn them in, and we're going to have a sane conversation. If you're here to debate a plea, if you're here to yell and scream, you came to the wrong place. I'm not going to tolerate it. The people of Oakley, Kansas deserve better than that. You know, I think I want to take on the first big issue that. Can we have order or not? Or should I just leave now?
That's your choice.
See, here we go. Can we just like break up on sides and play Red Rover or something?
I don't have a question, I have a comment.
Okay, I don't want to hear it right now, okay? Because there's 150.
There'll be an open session.
Okay.
Don't
It's up to
leave.
you. I'm about done with this interrupting. Okay? I'm about done with it. All right?
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. I think I want to take on the big.
Can we answer the questions?
I think you can give them to my staff. I think I'll make that pretty
That
clear.
would be great. Can you answer, did Russia invade Ukraine? Can you answer that for me, sir?
You know, I want to take on the biggest issue I think of the day. The issue.
Yeah, our Constitution. So please,
Shut up.
Shut up.
Let him answer.
okay, answer the question first.
I want to take on the biggest issue of what I think of the last 24 hours. And again, I wrote down some notes because I wanted to share this from my heart and make sure that I get it right. First of all, I have a deep amount of compassion and empathy for the people of Ukraine. It's those birds that are making the noise. You can put your hand down, I'm not going to call on you. I have a deep amount of compassion and empathy for the people of Ukraine. They've been fighting this war with Russia for now almost 1,700 years. They fought bravely. I want to define Vladimir Putin. Look, I despise Vladimir Putin. He's a bloodthirsty war criminal. So this is what I'm trying to avoid is the cheering and the because we're going to come back and boo here in a second too. But I do appreciate the encouragement. Thank you. Look, he's a thug. He's a criminal. He's a murderer. He should be tried at The Hague. And whatever they decide should happen to him. Okay? I have no use for Vladimir Putin. I have compassion for the people of Russia. I'm sure there's lots of good people there in Russia as well. The next thing I would say is that Europe's had 3 years now to step up. This is, in my humble opinion, and there'll be people disagree, I understand this, but this is Europe's war. Happy to help. Happy to help. We have 105,000 American soldiers in Europe right now. One of them was my own son and enlisted in the Army. I was there for a year as well. Thank God he's back safe. But in my humble opinion, Europe's had 3 years to step up and take this on. Russia has an economy the size of Italy. Europe has an economy multiple times bigger than Russia, and they have to be able to defend themselves. There's been at least 1 million casualties in this war so far, maybe 1 million deaths. How many of y'all grew up in the Vietnam War era or served in Vietnam? I mean, I just remember driving by the cemetery on my way to my grandparents' farm and seeing flag-draped coffins of young men that were playing high school football last year. And I said if I ever had a chance to stop endless wars, I would do that. So that's where that is coming from. Is I don't want, especially America, I don't want anyone dying. Millions of people died. This war has gotten nowhere and stuck. It is absolutely stuck. As I said it within 2 years ago, I said that if we didn't give Ukraine what they needed before this happened, and I begged the Biden administration to give them the tools that they needed before it happened, when it happened, I begged them to put on maximum sanctions on Russia, and they never did. I'm reminded what Eisenhower said about war. Ike said that I hate war as only a soldier who's lived it can, with all its brutality and futility. That I don't want war. At the end of the day, I think we should stay focused on the goals. We may disagree how to get there. oftentimes. But as long as we agree on the same goals, I'm willing to have that conversation. My goal, I believe President Trump's goal, is to have peace in this situation and avoid World War III. This really could have already turned into World War III or some type of a nuclear holocaust. In my opinion, Ukraine's been for 3 years has been a bottomless pit. We've spent at least $175 billion there, maybe more. And it just feels like we're throwing good money after bad money. I want there to be a peace agreement. I want it to be done sooner than later. I know I was not surprised at all to see the blow up yesterday. Was not surprised at all, based upon what the undercurrents were. There are ways to have avoided that event, but Mr. Zelensky had insisted on coming to the White House to sign this agreement.
Oh, Jesus. President Zelensky.
Again, this is so interesting that we all have a set of facts that we believe are right. We all have a set of truths that we believe are right. And I go back to this infallibility thing. To think that you're not infallible, to think that only your facts are right, I think that's not what democracy's about. I bet that 95% of the people in this room, let me back up. I know that based upon polling, 70% of Americans want there to be a swift peace to this situation, a swift peace. And I think that that's President Trump's goal as well. And I'm just going to, for those of you that want to keep warring over in Europe, I hope that you're willing to send your own son or daughter or yourself to go over there and fight. But personally, I think we've done enough there. We're willing to we're willing to support them, but I think basically we've done enough. You girls got some questions for me?
I tried, there's there's farming.
Yeah, what we need to do.
On Vice President and Medicaid. So.
Okay.
And then they used to shut down things like that.
Well, just kind of give me 3 or 4 packs of them, and
Yeah. So this one here is come on. I would like to start with that.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right, so let's do some agriculture ones, okay? Agriculture still represents well over 20% of the Kansas economy, probably at least maybe 30%, and in a county like this, maybe 70 or 80%. As agriculture goes, so goes Kansas. I'm personally a 5th generation farm kid. Both of our families, on both sides of our family, over 100 years old, so this is very, very important to me. Trying to read this. President Trump says the American farmer is expendable. Is the American farmer something in favor of corporate farming? So actually that's not what President Trump says at all. I hear President Trump say that farmers and ranchers are heroes. And every time he sees me, he asks me, how are your farmers and ranchers doing? I think that in the long term, his goal is to protect rural America. He understands that 90% of rural America voted for him, and that he'll do everything possible to preserve it. Rural America is in a tough spot right now. People are get upset about this Republican-Democrat divide, but I'm telling you the divide is tougher, I think, in rural versus urban America, fighting for the resources, the amount of money that this government is spending. Most of these counties are, have got about 50% of their population has decreased over the last 20 years. It's hard to maintain a hospital like this, to maintain the support of the municipalities, the water lines and the electric lines and the high-speed internet when the populations have been cut 50-70%. So I think that President Trump absolutely has the back of the American farmer and rancher. One of these questions is about the Farm Bill and USAID. The Farm Bill is a huge priority for me. I'm disappointed we didn't get it done last year. But the challenge was that my friends across the aisle did not want to fund crop insurance. Crop insurance is the backbone of every farm bill. And I say that, farmers only get 5% of a farm bill. Farmers only benefit from 5% of the farm bill. Over 80% of it goes to food programs, nutrition programs. Since the last Farm Bill was written, we've seen nutrition program spending go from $60 billion to $180 billion. So we've tripled the nutrition programs for this country. Meanwhile, the farmers' inputs are record highs, record drop in net farm income as well. And what we ask for is a little bit of help in the crop insurance side of that, and I think we'll get it done. The next piece of contention is the Title I funding, and only my farmers in the room know what Title I funding is. It's the ARC programs, those types of things. They wanted to decrease the reference prices on wheat and milo. And for a Kansas farmer, we can't defeat reference prices. The last issue is conservation. I'm actually the chair of that subcommittee on conservation, and conservation is near and dear to my heart. But when Washington has too many rules and regulations about it, it doesn't become feasible. So, for instance, they wanted farmers have to check off everything on their conservation list, including cover crops, to get any conservation program funding. Well, guess what? Those types of cover crops don't work in the western third of the state because we don't have enough moisture to do that. So, very committed to get a farm bill done. The other 5% of the farm bill is rural development. So about 5% of that funding, we were in a place yesterday where a hospital was built with USDA funding as well. So all over the state, rural America is helped by the farm bill, high-speed internet. Now, I bring up the issue of high-speed internet, and it takes about 2 seconds for someone to say, if I don't got good coverage, then I get that. But it's better today than it was 5 years ago. It's very expensive to get to the last mile. And just like roads and bridges, it's never done. There's always another road and bridge that you got to get to. This agriculture is really, really important to me. It's really important to rural America. And that's really what the folks in Oakley would like to spend a lot of time talking about. USAID. Let's talk about USAID for a second. Next to Medicaid, I've never seen a program with more waste, fraud, and abuse than USAID is. So the federal government has been spending at least $60 billion a year on foreign countries. At least $60 billion a year on foreign countries. Well, the problem is, I'll take the Food for Peace program. So we were sending food over to these foreign countries, and corrupt governments and corrupt criminals and warlords were stealing it and then selling it again on the black markets. So just a very small fraction of that amount of money was getting to the people that we wanted it to go to.
Kansas farmers, they need to have that grain.
Yeah, let me finish that. So let's talk about the Food for Peace program. Again, it's something near and dear to my heart. It was started. So you all are laughing, and so this is your, the infallibility, the lack of humility that you all. So the Food for Peace program is something near and dear to my heart. It was started up in St. Francis, Kansas, in the 1950s by a farmer who said, "Look, I was blessed with this great crop. I'd like to share it with people that are in need." And President Eisenhower was in office. He implements the program, and it was a great program, but it's now been corrupted. So what we're doing is actually just bringing it over to USDA. So the USDA is already doing programs like the Dole McGovern food program, which is really a school lunch plan for people overseas as well. I think the USDA is more locked in on those particular issues. On doing the food programs, they'll do a better job. I think that the farmer, the rancher that grew that food, deserves that it goes to the endpoint, to the people that need it the most. So we're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We're going to do our best to make sure that food gets to the people we need, but not in the hands of criminals and corrupt governments.
Does Congress decide that, or Elon Musk?
Okay. Okay, so a quick thing on the weather services. Again, I think that there's some opportunity to make the weather service more efficient. I've been pushing them for years that we need long-term weather predictions, not telling me that it's gonna be sunshine day. I know it's gonna be shiny day for the most part as well. So it's an important one, and we're continue to fight for actually to make a more precise funding on that as well. So that's the story on NOAA. Doge, Doge, give me the Doge ones. Okay, Doge.
Multiple Doge guys, yes.
Yeah, let's talk about Doge for a second. I think it's another point to see as well. I think again some data points are important for you all to know. So we're $36 trillion in debt. We're spending $1 trillion a year on interest. This year alone, the federal government's going to take in 5, but spend $7 trillion. We're going to take in 5, but spend 7. That's a difference of $2 trillion. This is unsustainable.
Billionaires don't need that.
He's just shutting off funding without Congress. Isn't that your power?
So those are some starting points I would talk to you about as well. The next thing I would mention is that the federal government issued $250 billion of improper payments last year. That's not waste, fraud, or abuse, it's just incompetence. $250 billion of improper payments, most of those from Social Security and Medicare.
According to who? Show the paperwork.
So that's from the Government Accounting Office. It was published long before there was a Doge, and there was an Elon Musk guy even involved with this from the Government Accounting Office. So we'll post it on our website later today. It's called the Government Accounting Office Report. Absolutely, I've got that as well. So that's about one example. I'm afraid that again, programs like Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, the Pentagon, the bigger numbers that they're writing, the more opportunity, fraud, waste, and abuse. And again, 70% of Americans want us to get rid of the waste, fraud, and abuse. 70% of Americans support doing this, and that we're saving. Like 70% of Americans want us to save the American taxpayer money and balance the budget.
But there are other ways to do it.
We all want that, but we don't want an unelected, non-civil servant person in charge of it.
Sorry.
I think if we go through the process of vetting, everybody would be more effective.
Yeah. So all the Doge employees have been vetted. They're employed.
Jesus.
They have it. Prove it. Prove it.
Can you tell us the process for vetting them?
They go through the same process that every other federal government employee.
He's not.
Prove it.
So he is an advisor to the president, just like Joe Biden was an advisor to the president. He's an advisor. The rest of those people are employees, and I know you're fed so much misinformation.
As we are
Yeah.
Why do we give so much money to Musk? Why does he get all of these contracts?
Okay. So we got a question about the veterans.
Our point might have to be other, so how do we make sure we're all on the same page is what I'm at? Like, because clearly, half the people in the US are brainwashed one way or the other way. So how do we get us all on the same page again? Because divided we stand, or divided we fall, united we stand. We have to come back together. We have to come back together. I know you don't like it.
We need democracy.
Okay, hold on. This is what, if we get down to these side arguments again, I'll just have to leave. I don't want it to become personal.
I apologize.
Yeah,
Let's talk about the veterans.
Okay, let's talk about the veterans. What a good idea. Again, I just want you to know how important this is to me. Since the Civil War, someone from every generation of my family has served. My dad served, my brother served, I served. I mentioned my son is serving right now. I think at the federal level, what we've done over the last few years, I thought we were making some progress under President Trump, but we went backwards over the last 4 years. What I've seen happen is the veterans service, I call it customer satisfaction, has gone way down in the last 4 years. That the lines have become longer. So it's becoming less efficient. There's just become a general malaise, if you would, in our veterans programs once again. In our level, we have given the veterans hundreds of billions of new dollars. Sometimes I feel like we're throwing good money after bad money, and it's not getting to where it needs to be, but we certainly have tried to fund those things. We've allowed patients, veterans, to get more care in their own home, but there's a lot that we haven't got accomplished. I'm very concerned about the veteran suicide rate. I'm concerned about the farmer suicide rate as well. I'm concerned about mental health across the country, the epidemic of mental health challenges that we have as well. But we're continuing to do the best we can to support them. I have one person, his entire life is service for veterans that works for me, that has helped hundreds of veterans straighten out their benefits, get them to the appointments that they needed to get as well. It's far from perfect. I do think under this administration we'll go back in the right direction.
Unless they're trans.
Exactly.
Or women.
Exactly.
45% of federal workers are vets. How do you explain that when we are cutting all of these federal workers?
So there's some questions here about some of the federal programs: Head Start, Medicaid, SNAP, special education. Look, those are all great programs that I care about. Are they as efficient as they could be? I don't know. You know, what I love about Head Start is there's lots of local people involved with those, making sure that we're stretching those dollars, so I'll do my best to protect them. The SNAP programs, again, we've tripled the amount of spending on those food programs. Look, I think the best thing we could do for people is to help them get a job. And I think that if people have mental health problems, if they don't have the education, let's try to help those people get a job. There'll be people that need the SNAP program. I understand that. But does it need to be triple of what it was 5 years ago? That's the question, right? Special education, special education. I get this question all the time. It's grossly underfunded because of the federal mandates. I wish I had a quick solution. Medicaid. Medicaid, 74 million Americans are on Medicaid right now. 74 million. So I think it should be the question. What is that, 25%? It's not quite 25% of Americans. Should 25% of Americans be getting free health care?
Your math isn't right.
So
Your math isn't right.
This is what I hear, though, is that I hear that health care costs are way too high.
No.
So I hear that. So what I hear is, when try to give you an example. In this emergency room today, if 10 patients go in there, the 3 or 4 people with private pay insurance are basically paying the tote for everybody that goes in there. And that's one of the reasons that private insurance is so up. There are people that need the Medicaid, and let's protect it and save it for those that need it the most. But again, Medicaid has went up 50% in the last 5 years. We're going to soon be spending more on Medicaid than Medicare. We're approaching $1 trillion a year on Medicaid. I'm telling you, folks, that's unsustainable.
But
And
kids
again,
are our future. Our children are our future.
so half of our children are on Medicaid. And I think that's the first ones we should protect. We should protect widows, seniors, children, absolutely. Those are the ones that we should protect the most. But I think there's just a lot of people out there that we should help get an education and help them to get a job.
But you're cutting that too.
As well.
To get a job and have 200,000
Yep, I got 2 jobs.
Some folks asked me about making America healthy again and what that looks like. It's really interesting group. 60% of Americans have a chronic disease. 60% of Americans have a chronic disease. 20% of our children are on a prescription drug. 40% of our children are pre-diabetic. America has a chronic disease problem. And we can keep making new medicines. We can put everybody on Ozempic. But at the end of the day, we're still going to have lower ages when people are getting Alzheimer's and cancers and the litany of things because America is not healthy. This is something I've been trying to work with for 40 years as an obstetrician, having a diabetic clinic, seeing my diabetic clinic going from 2 patients a week to 12 patients a week in my years of practice. It's quite a challenge, and I saw women make the lifestyle changes they needed when they had a baby inside of them. But it's really hard to change lifestyles.
But shutting down the hospital in Great Bend isn't good either.
So the big challenge with Make America Healthy Again is the re-education and the reprioritizing. 70% of the calories we eat are from packaged foods. 70% of the calories we eat are from packaged foods, ultra processed. If you would. So do you want to have your own town hall? You can go outside and do it. You've interrupted me about 12 times. You've interrupted me about 12 times. I'm not being rude. I'm just asking you. Excuse me.
Tell us about measles.
Okay, let me finish this one. I'm happy to talk about measles as well. But if you want to drive the healthcare costs down, if you want to save Medicare, if you want to make Medicaid that's more feasible, not increasing it by 50%, we do need to make America healthy again. And I don't know why anyone would be against that. I really don't.
Yeah, go on.
Why did you let RFK go through?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's gonna decimate the healthcare system.
Measles.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of Make America Healthy Again. I'm going to keep fighting for it. It's going to be a challenge, and there's no promises. But if you want me to save Medicare, Medicaid, bring the cost of your health insurance down, then we do need to make America healthy again. Measles, goodness, I saw 155 people with it recently, is what I saw was the number. One young child died.
9 states.
Okay, and I spoke to the Biden administration about this 4 years ago. But if you haven't opened
Nah, it's bullshit.
you haven't opened borders,
That's not it.
so you all have your facts, but I'm just encouraging you to maybe listen to my facts for a second. I'm sort of giving you the facts as I see them, as your United States Senator, as a physician dedicated to the health of Kansans as well.
As our civil servant, you work for us.
So what I saw, I was elected by the people of Kansas by an overwhelming majority.
But you represent us all.
I do my best.
Your money comes from Florida.
You represent us all.
I do my best.
Whether you do
You
your
don't even
best
live
or not,
here.
you represent every single one of us here.
That's right.
Of course I do.
Live here.
We want to convey that to you.
I appreciate that. How many people have been willing to come up and do this, right? Think about that for a second.
I have told you.
welcome you
I
to
welcome
Wichita.
you.
You wanna come to Wichita?
Yep.
We
Come to
love
a
you, North
population
Park.
center of Kansas.
So measles. So back to measles. What I saw when I went to one of my 3 visits to the border was I visited one of the clinics there. It was full of people with communicable diseases. I said then we'll have a tuberculosis outbreak. I'm much more worried about the tuberculosis outbreak in Overland Park, in Johnson County, Wyandotte County, it's probably mostly in Wyandotte County right now. Then the measles. I encourage everybody to get their vaccines because the herd immunity is not going to work when there's 20 million illegal aliens in our country.
Jesus.
Those are religious exemptions.
It's the Mennonites, it's the U.S. citizens that are doing it.
Sir, are you aware that many countries require vaccines and they'll actually hunt you down if you're not gotten the vaccine after birth?
Okay.
Probably those aren't the problem.
So there's a question about tax cuts and who benefits. Okay, so 2017-18, the Trump tax cuts happened. It saved Americans $1,000 a month. Saved Kansans $1,000 a month. Okay, so that is a fact you cannot dispute. So certainly those tax cuts, saving Kansans $1,000 a month, was very helpful. That was on average. So that was on average. Okay. So with those, this is one of the rudest audiences I've ever had.
Been pretty quiet.
You're not from Western Kansas.
This is,
Guaranteed.
oh, I am. Oh, sir, I am. Yes, sir. Here.
Okay, one.
Raise your hand, Western Kansas, represent.
Hey,
For just a minute.
Western Kansas.
Everybody off in this room, but that's my job. First of all, I want to thank you for coming out here. It takes a lot of good, and thank you. I do appreciate that. And to do your job, I would not want it. I wouldn't, and I don't think anybody else in this room would really want it.
I want it.
I disagree with very much of what you said. But I'm a dying breed. I'm a conservative Democrat. Don't find very many of us like that. But there is very, very much, the things that they're wanting to do, cut the fraud and waste in government. I believe that those are very laudable things to do, and I fully support that. But I think that the way that we are going about it is so wrong, because there are unintended consequences. We don't know what we don't know. So I would beg of you, as an American, you talked about being, I think that's fifth generation farmer. My family came to the United States back in the 1600s. We were told that we were, growing up, told that we came over as a land of gentry. We came to find out we were really indentured servants. We worked our way from the bottom up, and we have fought in every war that the United States has had since before there was a country. I support the veterans. But what you're doing right now, what the government is doing right now, as far as cutting out those jobs, a huge percentage of those people, and I know you care about the veterans, are veterans. And that is a damn shame.
Yeah.
That is a damn shame.
I'm not a Democrat, but I'm worried about the veterans.
Well, I yielded to one of my elders, and I appreciate his comments. I think it's a great, we don't have time for everyone to stand up. I do got 2 more commitments today. Appreciate everybody making the drive out, and God bless America. Thank you.
Did he not want to hear us booing?
Vote.
Is this an hour?
Funny how he was upset by the booing, and it was because this is a hospital. It was his choice to have this at a hospital, small hospital in a very small community. That was his choice.